We're back with ADP discussion. We're moving on to round 2. We're talking about guys like Paul Skeens, the pterodactyl, Tarik Skubal, and Ronald Acuna Jr. on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my partner in crime, my best friend, Matthew Anay, and you can find him at Matthew_Anay. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes you to the channel and gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. But most importantly, this time of year for you guys and Matt and I, join us on the Subtext platform. Through Subtext, it's an in-depth, personalized experience, offering so much more than we can in this 30-minute episode. In this time of year, you're getting our 2025 rankings, sleepers, breakouts, bust, and so much more. So make sure you do that. Link is in bio if you're ever listening or watching. And you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And all right, Matt, we took a little break yesterday. We did the Juan Soto news and a couple other free agent signings. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. It was really good episode. But today we're back. We're back to 2025 ADP discussion. We started it a couple episodes ago. Once again, if you want to check out part 1 of that, a couple episodes back, you'll find it right in our YouTube channel link or wherever you listen or watch. So, but Matt, we got great names, really fun, interesting names on this episode. And honestly, I don't think we're going to agree on all of them. So let's get into it, brother. Why don't you start here at the top?
All right, we're going to talk about Mr. Paul Skeens coming off the board at 13, playing for those Pittsburgh Pirates. So, Paul Skeens being drafted as the SP1 by ADP. Don't agree with that, but
it's mind-blowing.
I mean, listen, you're splitting hairs, right? I guess it's a matter of where you want to plant your flag, right? If you want to go at Paul Skeens, I'm not going to blame you. The problem is you're going to have to pick a pitcher in this round, it looks like, right? In this round, I'm not saying where or when. You got Paul Skeens, you got Tarik Skubal, and you got Zach Wheeler. Your top 3 pitchers this year, which wholeheartedly, a mix of that, and that is my top. So, is what it is. For Dominic, I know it's Tarik Skubal over Paul Skeens. After that, I'm not sure where kind of the divide is, but it is what it is. For me, I'm just not drafting Paul Skeens this high just based off of the fact that I need to see him do it again. I need to see a little bit more. We're anointing him very fast. And again, I mean, I understand. Probably one of the most historic opening rookie seasons you've seen from a pitcher in a very long time. Everything is super enticing, from the talent all the way out to all the underlying stats. The kid is absolutely incredible. I don't really need to go into it. All I could say is you really need this to hit versus picking somebody with a little bit longer of a track record. I'm not willing to plant my flag there as my SP1 just over the other 2. That's really just where it was. I was hoping he'd fall towards the end of the second, beginning of the third, and then I would have felt comfortable, but I can't do it here.
Yeah, it's a pretty penny to pay for a 23-year-old in after one season. But if there was anyone that we were going to do it for, I get it. Like you said, man, I get it. Paul Skeens. The thing is, he's 6'6", 235, and he's just like built to be like a dominant starting pitcher. He's not like the Chris Sale who's like 6'6" and lanky. This guy, he's an animal. He sits at 99 miles an hour on the fastball. That's the only thing that scares me though, right? You've seen it happen with guys like DeGrom, when they, get to that point in their career, they're just whipping that fastball too much. And, Skeens sits with that fastball at about 40% of the time. Injury might occur at some point, but I don't think that takes away from him being, a top 3 starting pitcher. And like I said, Matt, I mean, like Matt said, I'm not gonna pick nits with anybody here because you know what, the top 3. I think the only one that I wouldn't put 1 is Wheeler. We do have Wheeler at 2, but I wouldn't move him to 1. But I wouldn't argue with you if you're going to take Skeens at 1, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't. But I love the young kid, and I think he's going to be an absolute stud going forward. So we're more talking about, like, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in the league, but we just don't want to put him at number 1 right now. Let's go on with the guy that we have number 1. Let's talk about the pterodactyl, Tarik Skubal.
Oh, sorry. Don't have that queued up, but here we go.
I was hoping you did. But all right, let's get into it then.
Sorry.
There we go. Best nickname in baseball, honestly, that Matt came up with for him, and I love it. So, last year, the breakout season, it happened for Scubal. 31 starts, 18 wins, 2.39 ERA, 192 innings, 228 strikeouts, 2.49 FIP, and 0.92 WHIP. And, the kid's just really, really good. Let's even do this. I want to talk about, since, Tarik Skubal went back and, in 2022, when he really made the change, to his delivery, started, ramping up on that fastball a little bit and really was just coming into his own as a 25-year-old. We're doing since then. So we're doing from 2022 to 2024 for Tarik Skubal, all those years with the Detroit Tigers, of course, 67 starts, a 2.82 ERA, 390 innings, 447 strikeouts with an 0.98 whip, and the FIP, fielding independent pitching, ERA indicator, is at a 2.53 over that time. So when now we can kind of compare Skeens and Scubal a little bit more now that we got Scubal here on the board. It's just the consistency. Do I want a guy with a track record of 390 innings and 67 starts, or do I want a guy that played a little bit more than half a season? I'm going to take Scubal. I also think the Tigers are going to be really, really good. Not really, maybe really, really good. Maybe really, really good. Don't hold me to it, but they might be pretty damn good this year. So I think Scubal's going to get another season with a lot of wins. Pitches in a great park, that suppresses power. So the ERA is going to be real. And he doesn't even give up a lot of, walks either. So that whip is going to be nice. I just don't think there's a lot of question marks on Scubal, especially coming off of a year with 192 innings. I think he's good. 28 years old, best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion, right now.
So Scubal's also a little risky. I'm going to play the other side of it. I still have him ranked 1. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not this isn't like a poo-poo on Tarik Skubal, but it's more of those things where, like, he also hasn't pitched a full season up until this year, since 2021, right? And he went down to TJ, and he's another guy who's on the smaller side that has a very fast fastball. And that velocity does kick in and can play the damage, can damage him as well. We've already seen it happen once.
He's a pretty big boy, 6'3", 240. That's not a big boy.
Baseball, you're talking, not Paul Skeens.
Hey, listen. Nobody's Paul Skeens, man. We nobody's Paul Skeens.
But the thing about Scubal is the fact that he's already gotten it. Once you've had it, you get about like a 2-year window. We're still within that window. Yeah. So, like, this is where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to anoint him next year. I'm going to start having him come down. But ultimately, like, there's no secure pick with these first 2 pitchers off the board going literally back to back in ADP. I feel like they both have question marks in terms of whether it's health or can they do it again, things like that. Whereas Dom mentioned him again, third time we're mentioning him, Zach Wheeler. If you want a little bit more of a conservative pick, I wouldn't mind you picking him 1 because he's done it for quite some time now and been elite forever. And he's honestly probably your safest option probably out of the 3. So which combination I'm okay with. It's just, what is my preference? Tarik Skubal for the upside and ceiling, Zach Wheeler for safety, and then Paul Skeens for the super upside. That is how I have it ranked in my head and how I have it ranked on paper. But we're gonna before we move on, and before I can, even think about sneaking in this next game, hint, it's Francisco Lindor, and whether I actually like this draft price of his, you'll find out coming up next.
Folks, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. And folks, we've been doing it, Matt, right? We've been doing it. You got to make that money. You got to win that first $5 bet to, get that $150. Bet against the Giants, man. My dad was at the game this past weekend, and he was sending me pictures. He was calling me. He's like, Dom, they don't look good. And I was like, Dad, if you've been watching the podcast, me and Matt talk about it all the time. How bad the Giants are doing on our FanDuel ad. So, I told my dad, go to FanDuel. You can literally make live bets. I said, Dad, make a live bet against the Giants. And you know what? My dad made a little bit of money. And so can you guys. So never waste a hunch and make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And all right, Matt, let's jump back in. Let's do Francisco Lindor here, right? So with Mr. Francisco Lindor, honestly, not a career year last year, but a very, very strong year. He had 152 games played. He had 618 at-bats, 107 runs, 39 doubles, 33 homers, 91 RBIs, 29 steals, and he had 273. I feel like Lindor's finally got comfortable here in New York, and he's been pretty stellar. Almost every year with, the Mets has actually, been pretty stellar. He did have the down year in batting average in 2023, but bounced back nicely this year. 30-30 season is never out of the cards for Lindor. He's going to be 31 this upcoming season. They add Juan Soto, who is projected to hit right behind Lindor. So I think Lindor is going to have a monstrous run season. I could see 120 plus runs for Lindor. RBIs, let's see how the bottom of that lineup looks, who he has to drive in. If those guys are hitting, getting on base, the RBIs could be pretty solid as well. I just don't think there's a lot of question marks in Lindor's game. I have Lindor as the fifth shortstop on the board, fifth shortstop off the board for me. Mookie Betts is in there, and I think he retains shortstop eligibility in every platform. I could be wrong, but I think he did get enough games in there last year. So fifth shortstop off the board. And honestly, all of those other shortstops, according to ADP, do go ahead of him. So it's not a knock on the talent. It's just more of, hey, we got a lot of good shortstops in the league right now. And Francisco Lindor is one of them. Very consistent pick. I really do like taking him this year for fantasy.
To be honest, he's probably a solid second round pick. So, here's the deal, right? You pretty much don't get any of the top four shortstops in the first round. Then you kind of the last hurrah to go and get a top end shortstop is Francisco Lindor. He's the only one not in the first round. Scary enough, right? And you're talking about Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Ellie De La Cruz, Mookie Betts. Boom. Then you pretty much have Francisco Lindor, Trey Turner, and Corey Seager. And, the other two honestly have, injury question marks, whereas Lindor has just been playing healthy for years. He's just a little bit of a slow starter. You look at the first 2 months, and it took till the end of, May for him to really kick in. And then once he kicked in, he was phenomenal. So, and it's one of those things where honestly, he's probably going to be the guy I pretty much target in that round almost every time, because I'd rather have a top 5 shortstop than having to deal with muddling with injuries later, even though the upside may be higher with the Seager and a spit out man and a Turner. But yeah, other than that, I don't disagree with the pick at all. ADP I think is spot on, truthfully. We're gonna move on. We'll talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the Toronto Blue Jays. Honestly, he's my number one first baseman. He's great. You look at him and everything is kind of coming together. The power, the runs, the ribs, even the average looks good. I got to say, overall, I'm pretty impressed. I think here's your coming out party to fantasy eliteness. I don't think the batting average is attainable, but maybe a 280 to 295, I think, is pretty much our golden sweet spot here, and that'll still be ROI, return on investment, in terms of pick. I might start a new one, ROP, return on pick. Trademark, capitalize. That's all me now. Going under the LLC. But anyway, he definitely poses a threat every time he's out on the field. The 30 home run season, the 103 ribs, the 98 runs, everything screams that. And then everything underlining says, hey, this kid it's not a hollow season. I'm all about it. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I'm speechless because I can't find anything to really poke a hole in where this pick is. I think it's actually perfect placement. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr., fair price.
I'll say this, man. I'm gonna even take it a step further. I'm gonna say he's being underdrafted right now. In my opinion, honestly, I think he should be going at the end of the first round. I feel like I would personally take Vlad over Corbin Carroll and Julio Rodriguez. And once again, we're talking, mainly in head-to-head, 5x5 category leagues, but even in points leagues, Vlad walks so much. He doesn't really strike out a lot. He had a monstrous second half. He hit 376 over the final 63 games of the season with 16 home runs. And he just had a really bad April, March, the first 31 games of the season. He had 229 with 3 homers. If he somehow manages to just be Vladdy for a whole year, I think the sky's the limit. I actually do think the batting average is legit. If you look at Baseball Savant, the expected batting average is 321. I mean, I definitely think he could hit over 300 again for sure. I think the Blue Jays will be a little bit better. I think they're going to go out there and sign a couple of free agents. So I think the runs and the RBIs are going to be great for him. There's just besides speed, which you can get if later in the draft. You can just go and get a steal specialist, or just capitalize on steals guys later. I think Vlad is one of the very few guys that we you just can't really poke too many holes in his game, like Matt said, and he's just a great pick. I love Vlad in the second round. That's probably going to be my guy in all redraft leagues this year, but it's going to be one of my main second round picks. Let's keep things going. Let's get into him, Matt. I think we brought his name up about 17 times already on the pod. Let's do Zach Wheeler, the number 3 pitcher overall coming off the board this season with early ADP. And we kind of got into it. Wheeler is just a super consistent guy. He's been around for a while. He's been doing it for a while. He is getting up there in age. He will be 35 this season, but age hasn't come into play yet. Last year was, one of his best years in honestly a few seasons. And that speaks to just more of how good last year was than, his past few seasons, which are also really good. 32 starts this year for Wheeler, of course, with the Philadelphia Phillies. 2.57 ERA, 16 wins, 200 innings, 224 strikeouts, and an 0.95. Zach Wheeler, aging like fine wine. I have him as my number 2 overall starting pitcher right now, right behind Scubal and ahead of Skeens. Those 3 names, we kind of mentioned it already. That's the top 3 definitively. After that, kind of gets a little bit shaky, but those are the main 3 that you want to look at the top of your drafts. Honestly, since 2020, Wheeler's had only 1 season with an over 3 ERA. In all of those years, he's been, except 2020, he's been well over that K per 9. And it's just what he does. If you want that consistent pitcher, at the top of your rotation and you know what you're getting, Zach Wheeler is going to be that guy this season.
Oh yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too, something that you may not even be aware of, being that I live in the Philadelphia area. He actually has made adjustments to how he throws the ball for longevity to keep his body and his arm.
No, I didn't hear that. I love that.
So halfway through the season last year, he actually was working on changing his release point. So instead of it coming up top like everybody else that then develops problems, he actually started going a little bit more off to the side so that he can kind of give less strain and be more of a natural movement coming out. So Zach Wheeler's in it for the long haul. And I think,
I love that.
Yeah. So with Zach Wheeler, I'm pretty excited to see that, and also makes it even more confident in the fact that, okay, I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to have an elite pitcher for the whole season, and Wheeler is probably the safest pick out of the top 3 in my opinion. But again, any which ways, go for it. But coming up next, we'll be talking about Mr. Yordan Alvarez, and honestly, where I could see him possibly climbing an ADP because he's just so darn good. But we'll find out why coming up after this. All right, and I mentioned it at the top. Let's talk about Mr. Yordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros. And, another great season. Finally managed to play 95% of a season. And when he does, he's incredible. 552 at-bats, 88 runs, 34 doubles, 2 triples, 35 bombs, 86 ribs, 6 stolen bases. Batted .308, an OBP of 392, a slug of 567, and an OPS of 959. What a great season from him. Underlying stats all supported too. X-WOB at 411, X-batting average at 303, X-slug at 595, exit velocity at 93.1, barreling 14.5% of the time, creating hard contact nearly 50% of the time at 49.7% of the time. Launch angles looking pretty nice. Always good on squaring up. Doesn't really whiff, doesn't really strike out. creates a lot of walks. He just chases a smidge too much, but I can't complain when you have that much, beautiful red around the corner on Baseball Savant. Yordan Alvarez is absolutely fantastic, and I believe he even has outfield eligibility this year,
He does.
which boosts him up in my opinion, because when it was UT only, it made it very difficult to do the team construction, especially with not the elite performance like Shohei Ohtani does. Where you're going to have some incredible season that's really tempting to pick him in the first round and near to the top, like we discussed on the last episode we covered ADP. So with Yordan, now that he has the OF, he kind of gets bumped up. I would actually draft him at the top of this round. There's outfield scarcity. He's performing at an elite level, and as long as he plays a full season, you're going to get an incredible return on investment. So ROP, I'm loving it, and my boy Yordan, I think, is a phenomenal pick, and I hope that there's some positive regression with the Astros, which then will allow those counting stats to go up even more. In points leagues, he's an absolute steal because of all the doubles he hits, on top of the fact he really doesn't strike out. Yordan Alvarez, overall, solid pick.
Yeah, man, another guy that we're kind of spot on with, and kind of in the same sense of Vlad. I feel like Yordan's being undervalued right now. 30 plus home runs every year. Like you said, that Houston team. He's had 104 RBIs in 21, 97 in 22, 97 in 23, 86 last year. He's hit almost 300 in all of those seasons. He's a career 298 hitter. There's not question marks here. It's just health. And I think you can put that question mark on almost anybody at a certain point. And I have Yordan Alvarez ranked as my number 5 outfielder going into this year. I'm taking him over Julio and Carroll as well. I think him versus Mookie is a debate. I think him versus Tatis is a debate. I just think that if you want, he's another guy. I feel like if you want a safe pick that you know what you're going to get, you take Yordan. If you want the scratch off of the Tatis, who can be really good, and I don't think Betts is a scratch off, but he's another guy, injury problems, and you don't know if he's going to steal as many bases as he has in the past. So, is it really worth the risk of those other guys where, Yordan, you know what you're getting when it comes to it. Honestly, he does have 40, 50 home run upside. There could be a year where it all just clicks and he's seeing the ball great and he hits 45 home runs because the exit velocity is right up there with anybody in baseball, barreling, hard hit. And when you look at any power metric, he is near, if not at the top of them when it comes to, like I said, just hitting the ball out of the park. But Matt, you want to hop back in?
Yeah, one thing. So for Fernando Tatis, I don't foresee that, only because there's a true 5 category contribution. So the 20 to 30 stolen base upside is real, but the Mookie though, that's a really good debate. Like because of the stolen base, probably on a decrease, they want to keep him healthy, which means keeping him, less off the running. Which
and as you said, the keeping healthy part is just mainly because he's another guy that's been hurt a lot. You can put him right at, like, if you're talking about like injury proneness, him and Yordan
that's a wash.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so you might as well take the guy that is more consistent. I know Mookie's been consistent, but I just feel like Yordan that is just exactly what you're getting. It's not a mystery box.
Yeah, it just what's attractive with the Mookie, which again I won't fault you either route on this, is he is a Swiss Army knife. But other than that, I mean,
that's true too. Honestly, I wasn't taking that into the account with this argument. Yeah, he does have second short and outfield in most leagues. So if you're playing that kind of game, yeah, for sure, I do like Mookie a little better.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more flexibility with team construction. But I mean, ultimately though, like outfield depth is really where you're probably going to play him about 95% of the time. I still am okay with the Yordan pick, but again, Mookie I feel should be falling towards 9, 10, 11, 12. Depending on, what your team construction is, how you want to approach the draft. And then Yordan's a fair mix in that too. So, yeah. But you want to take this next guy here?
Yeah, let's jump in. Let's talk about Mr. Ronald Acuna Jr., right? So right now he's coming off the board as the number 19 player overall. I think this is a good pick, but like it's another mystery box. Like this is the exact opposite of Yordan because we don't know what we're gonna get when Acuna comes back. We do have like the idea of what it could be like because he did get hurt back in it was 2021. Came back in 2022, played 119 games. It was 15 homers and 29 steals, and he hit 266. I do have a feeling he'll be a little bit better than that, but the game total, the amount of games played, might be in that range, right? So the Braves have come out and said that, Acuna and Spencer Strider are probably not going to be ready right away. We don't know what that means. It could be a month. It could be 2 weeks. It could be the opening series and then he's back. We don't know right now. So if you're for some reason, unless you play NFBC or anything like that, but if you're in a regular league and you're drafting right now, it's wild. But in those NFBC leagues and, those big money tournament leagues, to win those, big total prizes, you got to take risks like drafting Acuna. So I could see doing it in that setting. I really don't want to say too much one way or the other until we know when Acuna's coming back. If the word is out, like, hey, he's just going to miss a couple weeks, getting him together, he's out there running the bases, hitting, and we don't hear about any setbacks or any issues like that. Yeah, I think you can make money off this pick. I think that could be literally a league winning pick in the sense of the guy could just be a monster. But then again, it's just tough because we've seen this before from him, and the power wasn't there. Steals were, batting average was a little bit off. It might be another rebound year for Acuna. So, and then he honestly, the 49 games he played in 2024 weren't great. It was 4 homers, 16 steals, and 250. So, I mean, mystery box, total mystery box with Acuna.
Yeah, and he was coming into the last season with the knee injury too. He hurt it in spring training. So, I mean, that also definitely hampered it, which you could see what could be deflated, right? And which kind of supports the fact of what we saw in 2022 when he returned. So, you look at it and you go, okay, I've seen this movie before, and the sequel is never as good as the first one. So, I'm kind of like, I don't like the draft pick at all. Essentially, him and Duran, who's next in the ADP, so I'll bring him up as well, are almost the same player. And I don't feel either one of them should be drafted this high. I think the ADP is way too high on this, and I'm actually going to call it the bust of the episode because I feel you're paying too much for him. It's both of these guys actually.
Where do you have Duran ranked, Matt? Out of curiosity.
So at the position, I have Duran at 13.
Okay.
Which is nowhere near how this is going right now. With Duran, he's a specialty player. He's pretty much Nico Horner with the upside of actually hitting 20 some odd home runs. So the thing is though, like here's how we could break it down, right? You look at Duran and you say, okay, cool. This year was his career high and we're drafting him super high now. He had 21 home runs. He had 75 ribs. He had 111 runs. He batted, 285. Those are great numbers with 34 stolen bases. But what happens, and this is a realm of possibility, he drops to 16 home runs. What happens if the ribbies come down 10 by that point? What happens, too, if the runs drop to 92? Where do you have him ranked? 4th round. I feel like we're drafting him at his ceiling, right? I feel I'd feel much more comfortable with drafting him at his floor, which is a safe floor, but not at this pick. I feel like it's overpriced, and it's the same thing with Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna, we've seen this movie before, and I'm not really impressed. And on top of that, I could even see the stolen bases going down for him as well, because now you want to keep him healthy. This is a second knee injury. You're going to want to let him run less, which means that 70 stolen base upside, even 40 stolen base upside may be gone. And now you've really wasted a pick at either one of these guys at this point. I feel like the price is just too high for me, and I just got to go, I probably belong in Gabe's versus, Burberry. That's just where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm with you on Acuna. I have Acuna too high in my rankings. I'm going to move him down. But Duran, see, the thing is it just doesn't sound good to be like, oh, I have Jarren Duran as my outfielder number 1. And that doesn't feel good coming out of the draft, right? It doesn't necessarily feel, and let's say like a 15-man. Yeah, if you're in a 15-man, yeah, I would love Duran as a high-end outfielder number 2. I mean, as I say that, I do have him ranked number 11 at outfield right now. So technically, I do have him ranked as an outfielder number 1 in the 12-man league. But they're first full season, in the bigs due to injuries and other stuff. I know he's 27, going to be 28 next year. But I do like Duran. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. He leads off for that Boston team. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to make some moves. They were looking at Soto, didn't work out. I think they bring in a couple more big bats. But it just sounds really fun either way to be hitting behind Rafael Devers and Tristan Casas. I think the runs are going to be huge. Matt, you talked about the power. He does have he's 76 percentile in average exit velocity. He barrels the ball and hits it hard, above average. The sweet spot needs a little bit of work, but you know what? I think 20 home runs, is in his range. I do love me some Duran, but let's try and sneak one more name in here if we can. Jackson Chourio is up next, and this honestly might be the more fun pick here because I think Churio's upside is just one of the best in the game. I have Churio ranked as my number 10 outfielder. Love him for this season. We've talked about him a lot already on this podcast this offseason. We'll talk about him some more. Matt, you want to just chime in a couple things on Churio?
Here's the deal. I love him, but we're running out of time. Let's put it this way. I think that straight up, like, this is a fair price, but the guys going right after him, the Bryce Harpers, the Freddie Freeman, I'd probably pick over him. And that's pretty much that's where I stand. But I'd pick him over the last two that we talked about for sure, and many others. We can go all day of who I'd pick over Jarren Duran, but and again, it's no shade, guy's great, but ultimately Jackson Churio is going to be phenomenal. I've actually moved him up into, number 9 right now at the outfield.
Ooh,
so
you always got to do that, man. You always got to one up me, huh?
Yeah. So I love the kid. I think he's gonna be a great talent. But guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to make this show awesome, and share it with everybody. And the only way you're good at fantasy baseball is by going up against everybody with the same amount of information. So share this podcast. And when you're done checking us out, go out and check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB. I promise you won't be disappointed either. Gives great coverage. That being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Peace out.